Hey, John, good to see you, man.
Hey, Ricky. Hey, Sean. How are you?
Very well.
Hey, John, take us through your career journey. How have you got to where you got to? What were the steps?
Sure. Somewhat thrown into the deep end right from day dot. Despite doing software engineering at uni, I found myself in sales right out of the gate in San Jose, in Silicon Valley, right in the heart of the dot-com boom. So probably showing my age there. Bright-eyed, 21-year-old, bushy-tailed, no idea what I was doing, but needless to say, caught up in the madness that was the dot-com boom. And I have to say, been trying to catch that high, been chasing that high ever since. But the bubble popped, as we know, and I went back to freelancing, web development, and in 2005 took a stab at becoming my own founder, and started a social media platform for ASX investors and traders, TopStocks. That went okay. That went pretty good. Certainly probably better for the investors. They had a 5 return on investment in the 7 years that I was running it. In 2012, I had my little exit. I sold to an existing investor, but probably the biggest lesson was learning about how to retain equity as much as possible when you're starting up, so that when you're jumping off, the exit counts more. But it was still a great experience, and I'm very grateful to have had. After TopStocks, I went back to consulting, and then soon after, a client of mine, CBRE, the commercial real estate company, they offered me a full-time role to head the product that we'd been up until that point developing. That product, Host, CBRE Host, that became CBRE's first ever digital consumer product. It was a globally deployed workplace experience platform for tenants in CBRE managed buildings. And within 18 months, the product development team here in Brisbane went from 1 to 40. Just to give you an idea of the growth, recurring revenues, the time I left was about 10 to 15 million USD. And then probably more importantly, though, that product was supporting a wider business line with revenues of about 150 million annually on workplace services business lines. Huge success for CBRE, even more profound given it was a consumer product. Even though we sold to REITs and asset owners, B2B, it was consumers, end users, the people in the buildings that were using the product. So they were really the customers to a large extent. But even more profound given that CBRE, it's not a product company, much less a digital product company. It's advisory, it's service-based business. So very low margins, high volume. The property management business, just to give you an idea, the property management business, which sort of this product sprung out from, operates on 3 to 4% on a good day. So building a SaaS product and creating a product culture inside a business like CBRE, 100,000 people globally, as old as they are, 125 years old.
Yeah.
Very much a culture that's set in their ways. And my job, I was butting up against that and being both a change agent internally, pushing a product development agenda and mindset. And that became most of my day towards the end, at least. And specifically as we started to engage the operations teams, the sales teams globally, as we started to engage them and find better ways to work to get this product to market than perhaps they were typically used to selling and doing. So we did that. And then after I'd done all that I could do there, I went straight back into startup land, again, chasing the high. About 3 years ago, I think it was, maybe 2.5, I met Exergenics through PropTech Brisbane. So kudos to you on your recent announcement on that front. Met the team there, quickly became excited about their approach to reduce energy costs in the chilled water plant, the operations of chilled water plants, HVAC systems. Accepted the position as there to help them get their product into SaaS form and get that product to market. And so I also have an interest in Fallback.ai, which is a voice cloning AI tool for sales teams. And on the weekends, I automate the rental of my fleet of utes, which is a family business, Yellow Utes. I build the technology for that. Shameless plugs across the board, but between those 3 endeavors, I feel like I'm getting my startup fix, truly.
You're definitely getting your fix across 3 different businesses. Yellow Utes being the best for sure, because it's Yellow Utes.
The name. It's Utes.
100%.
Yeah.
Can't get more Australian than that. Yellow Utes.
Hey, John, let's go back to your original startup that you'd built up over a period of 7 years. You said exit was probably one of the biggest lessons you learned. But going back to that era, what was the first few challenges that you had to get over? Can you think back in the first year or two?
The first year or two was pivoting on the business model. So the original idea in theory was that we had developed a better alternative to traditional stock forums out there by bringing a level of accountability to that sector. So stocks, I don't know if you've ever spent time on stock forums, but they're a horrible place typically. It's just full of rampers, pumpers and dumpers and all sorts of agendas out there. TopStocks was there to actually hold you accountable to your sentiment and to rank you over time. And we just knew that people would pay unlimited amounts of money for this product and tool, because who wouldn't? No, turns out very few people were prepared to pay to have that as a paid extra. So pivoting on the business model and understanding that, so we flipped right into advertising back in the days where you could attract all the big brands to advertise and get a good CPM.
Good return.
So that was the biggest lesson, is being okay to pivot. It's not the end of the world.
And then I guess talking through CBRE, I think you face a challenge that a lot of people face when they're on product side, right? Like product and dev, you threw yourself against that wall and the rest of the company is focusing on go-to-market and sales and driving. I don't think that's a hugely different sometimes inside SaaS companies, where there can be a huge amount of focus on go-to-market and how what we're doing there. And the product guys and the dev guys sit on the back foot going, Jesus, if I don't build stuff, you don't have anything to sell. And so when you were doing that, for the product leaders and the dev leaders that we've got who listen in, and what things did you drive and how did you get your messaging across that allowed you to get the support you needed to get the product where you wanted it to go to?
So you're spot on. It's an age-old problem, no matter if you're... And we were a SaaS company inside a big old institution. It was very much a startup inside. We even had our own level and our own floor, separate from the traditional business. Like, we were very much a carve-out. So 100%. And I'd never worked for an enterprise like that before. So part of my learning was just even figuring out how to navigate it, let alone be effective in it. But not being afraid to get up close and personal, basically implement frameworks and ways of working that brings the sales team on site, that brings the operations team on site in all these regional areas and work together to build the product. Not try to do it in isolation or not try to build it in silo. So building a framework and having that framework agreed on and actually composed with these market leaders together in concert. That was when things started to become a lot easier, because we all had these rules of engagement that we agreed to follow and that we agreed to develop the product with. And so that was a turning point. Up until then, there was a lot of, it was not peaceful times.
Lots of arm twisting.
Yes. Lots of escalations.
John, so I'm making an assumption, correct me if I'm wrong. So in the 0 to 1 million ARR range, there's a lot of trial and error going on, right? So let's assume you've now got past that 1 million stage. How do you, at that point in time, think about product roadmap? Are you taking a lot of customer feedback on board? Are you also doing a lot of white space thinking, going, this is where we need to go, and thinking outside of the box?
In this specific case, for CBRE Host, we started off developing a product and we got a lot of traction, let's say the 1 million ARR, by developing a product, and we're able to sell locally and sell that product. What took it to the next level, the next order of magnitude, was realizing we're actually building a platform. And so that platform, then we couldn't have got one without the other. We couldn't have got to the platform stage without first building the product, but realizing that is our progression. And so rather than building everything we need to build to satisfy the complex world of buildings globally and integration into systems globally, which is an impossible task, we're now a platform and we're inviting others to help, like app on an app store, integrate into CBRE Host to help fill out our functionality. That was the only way we're ever going to achieve scale with a product like that, because you couldn't do it just through human labor of trying to productize that the whole way.
CBRE is not the best example of this. So more just in your experience, being someone who's built multiple products and understands that space. It's not my space for sure. One of the things I've seen a lot of is early stage founder builds a really cool product, gets a really big customer, or maybe a couple of really big customers. And then their roadmap devolves from what they wanted to build into really big customer says, I need X. So they got to go build X. Really big customer says, I need to build Y. So they go build Y. And it can become it's something I've seen cripple businesses where they end up really just being a dev house for their product for a big customer. How do you find the balance? And what have you seen there that could help those people where they've won this big customer and it's going really well, but they've got needs?
Yes, so CBRE is a good example because the only way we were able to get traction with the product was having that incubator client, getting the runs on the board. And I can say freely because it was announced everything. That was with Charter Hall. And so Charter Hall was our first incubator client with Host, and we went to market with them, and they, in a large part, dictated the road. I think it's just a mindset and a discussion with that incubator client. Hey, if you want now the best for this product, you've got to allow this to now grow into a product strategy for us. Our job is to look around corners for you, right? So as a product leader, my job is to look around the corner for you so that you may think, especially in a B2B to C product, where we were selling to businesses who think they have certain needs, but actually we're building for consumers and they have very different needs. And that's where we need to be focused on. And that's where we want to go with it. And it's just a conscious decision that as a product leader, you need to separate yourself from the actual contractual commitments and start to think for the customer rather than have the customer think for you.
I'm a huge advocate of customer journey and mapping it, and I think product has a big part in customer journey because if you do that right, you'll understand who's actually using product. You can identify what they want. So I think that's amazing tips. How do you deal with you? That all makes perfect sense, and you've got to have those discussions. But you've also got the CEO and the sales guys going, "Hey, do not piss this customer off, man. Like we want this revenue." Like, how did you get buy-in? Like, have you got tips for how do you get buy-in? So that because I get a product leader, you get it. You're looking, going, "Hey, I need to be building this. I need to be looking around corners. I need to be innovating. I need to be making sure that we don't end up in 2 years with like, cool, you built all this, but these guys built this, and we actually think that's shiny now, so we're going to do that." How do you have those discussions internally so that you make sure that you're thinking a bit long-term as well as short-term?
That is part of your product development framework. And there's 5 elements, I think, to a product development framework. One of those is how you prioritize the work it is that comes in, right? So the first is your thematic buckets. How are you collecting all these ideas or requests from customers? How are you hearing the problems of your clients and quantifying that to a problem statement, and that becomes what you need to work on. But then how is you as a team prioritizing that? And this is where I talked about earlier of getting the buy-in from the sales team, organizational wide, operations, sales, product and engineering on how you prioritize. At Host, for example, no matter who it was or what the request was, we had a formula, and it got a little bit abstract and became an art necessarily more than a science perhaps, but it created a thought process where they have to be able to quantify in real dollar terms what the value is they're bringing, and they were held accountable to that. So if you're coming to me as a sales team and saying, okay, I've got client X over here who wants this, and here's the integration, here's what we need to do, here's what I think it's worth to the business. That became part of the prioritization matrix, and that became something they became accountable to. The second thing is attaching those sales folks from short-term incentives that would see them disgruntled if that wasn't prioritized, because they had the sale, they're waiting, but it wasn't prioritized simply because it wasn't financially as a company as worthwhile. We didn't want them to be incentivized by short-term sales. So we had to change the way CBRE incentivized that traditionally, which they otherwise were incentivizing in short-term sales. Yeah, a solid prioritization matrix that you can quantify the value to the business and that is agreed on as foundational, constitutional across the board is the best way that I found. It's still always going to be elements that creep up, but you got to have a plan.
It was as easy as we could all say 5 statements and you could run your business. None of us would have jobs.
Yeah. Just leaning on my personal experience, I think a lot of collaboration does take place when you're at a certain size. You can just get in a room like with product team, marketing team, sales team, and just whiteboard ideas and get things out faster. As the teams grow and balloon out, you go on this global venture, that seems to get really hard because as you can imagine, as you go into the US, all of a sudden the product roadmap of that region seems to take priority over your established home market. So in your personal experience, how did you deal with that?
Yeah. So tactically speaking, we allowed regional teams to carve out their own development budget for the product. And once we became a platform, that allowed any developer, be it internal or our clients' developers, to build for the platform. So if a regional team wanted a certain allocation of resource to the product, they were able to spin that up. And we had that in areas. Regional teams that reported technically into us, but were, in terms of roadmap, driven by local needs. Yeah, that's how we scaled the regional requirements.
Just on the scaling question that you brought up, a lot of people out there, and even someone like me, used to think that you double the team, you'll get twice as much to output, especially from product and dev team. But there's a lot of data that suggests that it's not quite the case. Sometimes you have to go 4x to get 2x output. What was your experience there, and what is the actual equation that actually formulates the output?
I'm sure you've heard the saying, 9 women can't push a baby out in one month. It's 100%. I don't have a formula. I'm a firm believer in small ninja teams where possible. Yeah. Absolutely, there's diminishing returns as you bloat out. But being able to focus teams, if you are expanding, being able to focus them in self-contained, single-purpose teams that are not distracted by other teams and what they're working on, so that they can have the headspace and the clarity of mind to be working on what it is they want. And then that feeds back in the whole. But yeah, I don't have a formula for it. I'm sure it's a multivariate equation, but I can't rattle that one off.
Called guesswork.
Yes, gut feel as
it always be a secret science for me, developers and how they work.
Hey John,
when you see it when you see it going wrong, right? And because your product releases get slower, your product degrades over time, and so not that that's much helpful, because obviously things have gone too far down the track when you see it go wrong. But
so I guess you and I had a really good chat, and you mentioned like a lot of what we focused on in this podcast has been go to market. That was a bit of marketing. And it's a really good point. Like generally when you're an early stage founder, there's a switch that occurs and it's, I got to get go to market, I do it. And so we've talked about it a lot. But you made some really good points to me. What are some of the risks if people just get too go to market focused? If that's where you're spending 100% of your time and your product's just sitting there, what have you seen go wrong? What are the risks that people might be ignoring sitting in the background?
If your growth strategy, if your growth plans have a busted relationship with your product development team, and then there's a concerted push to market, especially early on, if it's your first big push to market, there's heaps that can go wrong. I guess the most common thing you'll see is your sales team just burning out. The sales team have to contend not just with the product and selling that. In isolation, you may have some degree of market fit on the product itself, but they're managing funnels, they're managing onboarding processes. All this is part of your product also. And if that's broken, your product is broken. And that's the best way to exhaust the sales team. This also creates, as we're alluding to earlier, rifts between the sales and engineering teams. That's all too common, especially, as I said earlier, if you've incentivized your sales team with short-term or upfront incentives, mostly sales teams will win that battle, right? In terms, because it's bringing revenue into but the product loses them. Yeah. And this is extremely common. And a good product manager here will identify that and build bridges to course correct that. Probably from your perspective, you probably wouldn't see much of the back end in terms of the effects it has on the code base. But one of the risks is actually turning your product from a technical code base point of view into what we call a Frankenstein or spaghetti code base. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen code bases that have all these call outs and carve outs for specific sales deals that were done that has this bit of functionality, does some obscure thing that one client wanted and over here. And then there's nothing wrong with that approach. In fact, I would encourage that approach but you have to have the processes that refactors that back into your product as a whole. But all too often it's not. And the effects of that can take a while to come to the surface. It might be the key developer finally leaving after they get the shits with this spaghetti code base, and then suddenly no one knows how to manage the code base. Shipping releases get slower, performance degrades, rewrites typically happen. And so ultimately this is all putting your margin at risk.
Obviously lots changed, especially with AI. When it first came out, there was a lot of talks about ChatGPT, and it was really going to create the efficiency for the product teams and the devs. How do you see that intersection taking place, and what do you see the future being for the product teams?
I think what you're going to see more of is, I'm going to call it agent-driven development. So as natural language, so user interfaces firstly are moving towards natural language, whether it's spoken or textual, like ChatGPT, you type in English, or the spoken word. So our natural user interface is spoken or written word. So the strides being made in that regard it's just a matter of time before that becomes a ubiquitous interface across the board. And so imagine ChatGPT, where your product fits in that type of situation. It's not so much a UI. Your products won't have UIs as much. It'll have an agency that these natural language interfaces plug into. What do I mean by that? You might be typing into ChatGPT, say, hey, with this spreadsheet, upload this spreadsheet and send everyone a customized email on their birthday, whatever it is. You're then transacting with MailChimp. You may not be a customer with MailChimp, but the AI is using MailChimp to transact in the background. You don't even necessarily know how it's built. So that what's happening there is MailChimp has an agent that is plugged into this application that is transacting with it behind the scenes. 10 years ago, you heard a lot about API-driven development. That was the next big push in software development paradigms. Now, I think it's going to be agent-driven development. How well does your product, is it porous enough to connect into these natural language systems and provide value without necessarily even being seen or being discovered in the first place, but just being the right tool of choice to fulfill that need as determined by the AI or agency at that time. That's where I see products trending towards.
So you're excited about it?
It gets daunting at times. The rate of change, I'm getting older. Period of time where it intersects and starts going the other way. Technology's always moved quick, and one of the challenges of being in the software engineer is deciding which framework or which library to keep up with and where to continue your education. And you've got to let a lot go. But you always felt in control of, okay, this is my path. Now it's branching out so much, it's intimidating to try to figure out where your next time should be spent learning or understanding. That's the challenge today. It's just things are branching out so quickly and the technology is moving so fast that choosing your path has become a very tiring exercise.
And obviously a lot of government interference is starting to come in, and there's a lot of compliance when it comes to AI. Is that a good thing as far as you're concerned, or is it just let it go, let people decide on their own? What should be the approach?
I think there's a lot of hype around AI. I'm not concerned around sentience. I'm not concerned around the Judgment Day Terminator 2 stuff.
I'm looking forward to that.
No,
It's not coming.
It's not coming. I think there's a lot of hype there. I don't know why, because it's coming from people that really, I think, should know better, but I don't see this. I mean, look, we've always evolved. Technology would look like artificial intelligence in the extreme from, even if we look back 20, 30 years to what we have now. It's with this continual evolution of technology. Our tool sets become more powerful, but that just means we go on to solve bigger and bigger problems because we have tools that are doing more of the heavy lifting for us. I think the hype will settle down. We're nowhere near sentience, in my opinion, and government regulation, that's a whole different situation or question. You have your pros and cons, but I don't think there'll be much to regulate at the end of the day.
So I can stop putting my LinkedIn posts every now and then saying, I'm looking forward to Skynet. I'm one of the good guys. Okay.
Making friends with AI.
Just for the time when it comes. I just thought I'd hedge my bets. I'd chuck it out there. I'll have a good hashtag library of all the nice things I said about AI.
And then coming back to you, mate, what are you most excited about for the next year or two?
Yeah, the challenge I'm addicted to taking ideas to market and building them and refining them and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. As soon as things hit mainstream and just status quo and go into maintenance mode, I tune out. I get very bored with the mundane. And so I'll move into the next thing. But while there's a challenge to overcome, there's plenty of them. Gets me out of bed and gets me up in the morning. So
nice.
I like it. You're a man who likes a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, I'm going to ask you my last question. Sean may have another one, but this has become my favorite of recent times. When you do decide to then go, this is enough for me, I'm just going to go retire, do something a little bit low key. I don't know if you're the type who's actually fully going to retire. You can correct me if I'm wrong. What's going to be your legacy?
Big question. Deep question.
Oh, it's the best. This is the best last question ever. It's the best last question. I love it.
In the context of what we've been talking about, I do find a real cause in bridging the divide between sales and engineering teams. And it's historically a war zone. And I do want to bring peace to that front line and help teams work better together and build amazing products. Yeah. That's in the context of what we've been talking about. In the context of larger, in terms of my life and my life picture, it becomes very simple and it becomes very small in the sense of very simple things, my relationship with the people around me, my kids and my family, and just making sure I tick a few boxes in that regard. If I do that well, that's all I want to be known for, is who I am to them, to those people.
Love it.
Very simple.
Yeah, that's it, mate.
Peacemaking family man. I'm going to put that one down there.
Hey, we'll love to take you through a quick fire round, John. These are meant to be quite easy, but sometimes they're not. So I will warn you, it can get a bit heated.
I'm starting to put the hammer down now. No multiple choice answers here. You pick a answer. It's a singular answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we'll kick off with an easy one. Favorite sports team?
Yellow Utes. I sponsor the soccer team. We play indoor soccer, and I sponsor the team, and the team is called Yellow Utes. Yellow Utes.
Nice. Done. That's a good. That's one answer. I can accept that.
Yeah. Yep. What about your favorite music type, mate? What do you listen to?
Hip hop is great for coding output.
So hip hop is the answer. Is hip hop? It's hip hop. Yeah.
If coding output is the objective,
yeah, definitely. There you go. Another hip hop. Favorite movie for all time?
All time Matrix. Without even questioning it.
We should have guessed that.
Yeah.
What, number one?
Yeah.
Because that's hard. That's a whole scene.
No, it's 100% Matrix on all different levels. It's even a product development metaphor, if you really want to. Yeah, I'm not sure that's what the Wachowski brothers had in mind when they were developing it. It's layered.
Yeah.
Nice. I know they made a Matrix. Did they make two more, Ricky? I didn't watch those.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. You mean number one as in number one, the first one?
Actually, the only good one, and then you pretend about the other ones.
That's how Keanu Reeves made like $1 billion, mate. He never had to work again. That was a Matrix.
He was an actor before.
I don't know that. Was he?
Yeah. Yes. Point Break was his big break, I think.
Yeah,
Point Break, dude.
It was.
That's right. They made 3, and then they made another one recently, a fourth, kind of Revelations or something, or whatever it's called, and they're all heaps older. And
old age version. I like it. Suits us.
Yeah.
What about this one, mate? Favorite place to visit?
My wife's Turkish, and so we travel to Istanbul quite a bit, and
that's a great spot.
I don't mind that at all.
Yeah. And this should be an easy one, but I don't know why some people get it wrong. Peanut butter. How do you like yours? Crunchy or smooth?
I've thought about this when I've heard it asked. And I think the only correct answer is crunchy. Because if you do smooth, then you just have to keep chewing.
Exactly. Hey, do you know what? That's actually the best answer we've had so far. Yeah.
Nice.
You can get smooth out of crunchy, just chew your freaking food. I love it.
But if you're not smooth, you can't chew your way to crunchiness.
That's true. Hey, mate, we appreciate you jumping on and sharing your insights. So thank you once again for popping on.
That was awesome.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. Good to see you guys again. And,
you